So my talk is one with God, one with God. You know, we have the classes at 11:30 today, and that's one of the main points Dr. Holmes tells us, is that you are capable of a direct experience with the divine. You don't need anybody to help you do it. You don't need to get all saintly. You don't need to get all perfect. Right where you are, right as you are, you can have this direct input from Spirit to live a joyful and loving life, because that's what Spirit wants you to do. It wants you to feel the support in the physical plane, that you're loved, that you're supported, and that you can live in this life without fear, and without worry, and knowing that you've got a power for good flowing through you. We are direct channels of God's possibilities in the physical plane. And we've come to this life to create blessings and miracles. And no one can do what you need to do but you. You were called by name from Spirit to come here and to do something wonderful and amazing. It might be to reawaken a nation to its moral core. It might be healing yourself or helping heal others, or just letting someone know how much you love them. In the mind of God, there's no great and small. We're all needed. We're all necessary. Creation will not be complete without you. And you have come to life so you can experience Spirit support. And it stands at the door and knocks. But we have to be the one to get up and answer. What Spirit wants us to most know is that we're loved, we're powerful. We have come so that we can witness it empowering us to make the most of our lives. Now, most of us, we want to have that experience where we hear this big booming voice from the universe, and that direct contact with the God itself, and say, here I am, I'm going to answer every question you have, I'm going to solve every problem you have, and all you need to be is the potted plant in the corner. I'm going to take care of everything. Well, it doesn't work that way, because if it did, there would be no growth for us. There would be, we are here to grow. The Spirit came to you in a big booming voice. Your first request for Spirit would be for clean underwear. We're here to grow in Spirit. We're here to co-create with Spirit so we can know the truth of ourselves. And to help us on this path, the universe reflects back to us what we reflect into it through our thoughts, what we're looking for, what we believe in, what we work towards, and what we think we deserve. You don't get what you want. You don't get what you're desperate for. You don't even necessarily get what you pray for, but you get what you think you deserve. And so it becomes important for us to get a better idea about ourselves and get a better idea about God, a better idea. My teacher, Kennedy Schultz, he would say that how most people think about God is an angry old man that you wouldn't even want to take out to brunch. You want a loving and kind, supportive friend. He also said, and I think this is very, very interesting, he said, early on in our experiences, early on in our lives, we let go of the idea of a kind and loving and supportive Creator, but we hang on like the devil to an angry and punishing one. That we hold on to. A perfect intelligence would never get mad. If perfect intelligence got mad, it wouldn't be perfect. So it's never going to be mad at you. Dr. Holmes says, Spirit becomes to us what we are to it. And it's constantly seeking our attention. It's constantly wanting us to know it supports and loves us. It's constantly sending out signals that there's a web of support around us. It's like the spider web You know, summer's coming up. You spider webs, you can walk into them, you'll never see them. But if you get a dew, then all of a sudden you see this huge creation that had intelligence behind it. And that's what Spirit does. If you will look for the synchronicities in your life, they will show up. And they're there to let you know how much you're loved and supported. I was thinking back week before last on my dear sister Sandra. She made her transition, it's been a while now. And when she was in her good place, she lived in South Georgia, and she loved coming up to Atlanta, where I lived. And she loved to spend the day traveling around Atlanta. We'd go see the big homes, big buildings. We would stop in different places. On this particular day, we had gotten in the car, I was driving her around, and I noticed a song came on I hadn't heard in probably 30 years. It was Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle. And so I was like, well, look at that, isn't that fun? Later on, we went to Whole Foods. There was a Whole Foods by my house, and she loved it. It was a big Whole Foods. They had a huge food counter, both salad and warm, and she reveled in getting little nibbles of tofu, and so she could go back home and tell all her friends about the horrible stuff that I had fed her. She could also get a little split of champagne that she really enjoyed. And I remember on this particular instance, we had dessert. We had gotten what they called hummingbird cake, which is basically a variety of red velvet cake, absent the red dye number 2. Now, dear Sandra could not conceive of why they would not want to use red dye number 2. And she was trying to convince the baker that all they needed to do was to go get this little bottle, cost you less than $1.50 at Walmart, and you could have your red velvet cake. It was a mixed message. But while we were eating in Whole Foods, what came over the sound system? Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle. Yeah. Later on, we were out touring around, and we happened to go by where she really wanted to go and what she had really come up to go. It was the Chinese import cosmetic store where they sold all the knockoff brands of cosmetics. So like instead of oil of Olay, they had oil of old age. And she was shopping around. I was trying to entertain myself. I had gone and was looking at the tightening of the facial creams. Just looking, mind you. I hadn't bought anything. And there on the counter, a bottle of Time in a Bottle. Time in a Bottle. I wish that I bought it. I did, but I didn't. And I didn't think anything about it. What's this? Just coincidence. So week before last, I go up to Savannah with my friend. We had toured a lot of the historic hotels, the historic homes, the Johnny Mercer homes, the different ones. On the way back to the airport, I had found that there was a rice plantation that was still in existence. The farmhouse was still there, and so it's a state park now, and so we decided we would go tour it. And it was really amazing because this plantation had been one of the largest plantations in the whole South. And it had produced massive amounts of rice. And it had stayed into the family until the late 60s when the oldest person who had inherited, she donated it to the state park. And everything is just as she left it. They haven't made any innovations. It's just all the same. So as we were leaving, headed home, headed back to the Jacksonville airport for my friend, he was talking about how this was just a capsule that had been caught in time. And right out of his mouth, he said, it was time in a bottle. And just as he said that, I looked up, and there was the exit sign for Jessup, Georgia, where she lived, just at that moment. Spirit is sending us these signals, sending this synchronicity to us, and the more that we're aware of it, the more you acknowledge it, the more it becomes power to you. Dr. Holmes says if you call it dust, it's dust. If you call it God, it's God. Now, New Thought authors from very long have all said that our minds serve as a conduit through which universal spirit flows, and that our ability to think creates an avenue for its expression in the physical plane. And the only power we can know is that which we can believe in, what makes sense to us. If we want a better experience, we've got to get a better God. And to have faith in the idea that regardless of what we're being challenged with, that we have a power that can create a better reality for us, can give us a better idea. I told you last week I spent 2 hours in a dental chair. And that wasn't even getting the problems fixed. That was just, the first hour was for cleaning, the second hour was for them just to tell me what all else was wrong and how much all it was going to cost. And so as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, well, this is going to be $5,000 to $6,000. Easily, this is going to be $5,000 to $6,000. I wasn't enjoying the idea that I was going to have to pay $5,000 to $6,000 for teeth. That wasn't really top of my agenda. And so I was sitting there thinking about this, and then finally the idea popped into my head. Well, there's a thing called, dental tourism. You can go, there's a lovely little town in Mexico, Merida, I think it's called. It's lovely, and you can get it done very cheaply. You can tour. It's one of the biggest repository of Inca artifacts. It's like, well, this could be really great. So I was like, well, okay, I can deal with this. I can handle this. I get up to the receptionist. She's calculating, how much I'm going to owe. And like I said, I thought she was working on the national debt. It all turned out, and she looked at me and she said, it's going to be $600. Well, that's way less than the $6,000 that I was worried about. And I was grateful to hear it. Now, here's the thing. Did my idea of dental tourism, did that affect the price? No. No, they're going to get what they need to get. But it did give me the flexibility and the openness to handle what was coming my way. It kept me from being a victim. And that's a huge, huge relief, not to be a victim in this world. To know I've got a friend with me, and we can create a better knowing. We can create a better situation. Dr. Holmes says what we are looking for is looking for us. Is looking for us. He also said what you're looking for, you're looking with. It's within. Life wants to work out for us. And we just have to give it as many opportunities as we possibly can to show up in our life. And if one avenue doesn't come through, throw out something else. If you don't have a fish in the boat, throw every hook you have in the water and see what you get. And if you have a long-term problem, most likely the solution is something that you've considered but dismissed. Our solutions, and we often have a tendency to dwell in a problem because we're waiting for a big answer, a big solution. But more than often, they come as just the next logical step. They come through an evolution of where we are to a better knowing for ourselves, the next logical step. I don't know if you've been following what has been going on in Russia, but this really brave hero, Alex Navalny, I think I'm going to butcher that. Let's just call him Alex. This man, he was safe in a Western country. He has 2 teenage children that I know he was hoping to raise. But he knew he had to get back to his homeland to try to save it. And he knew they were going to kill him once he got back. It reminds me of the story of Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. Christ could have easily fled Jerusalem. He had the time, he had the power, But he stayed there. He stayed there, and even knowing what the Romans were going to do for him, because he had a greater faith that his message, his life, meant more than his body did. And this is what Alexis did. You think about his kids. You think about how much he would have dearly loved to see them graduate. He's got a boy and a girl. How much he would love to see them married, have their first kid. But he knew, had a larger idea. Dr. King, Martin Luther King, he did the same thing in Memphis the night before he was assassinated. He told them, he says, I've seen the promised land. I see where we're going. I may not get there with you, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. That's having faith in a larger vision. Like Dr. King, Alexei, he was murdered for his higher vision. But a change is going to come. And it doesn't matter how many people will try to hold it back. You know, they didn't even want to give his body to his mother. They didn't want to even give a hearse so he could go they could take his body to the church. But the Russians have lined up on the route to show him respect. Dr. Holmes says our understanding of God is limited by our capacity to think large. We want to think large. We want to be creative. We want to expand our consciousness and deepen our connection with the divine so we can open ourselves up to the truth that God seeks to reveal itself through us. And Spirit is not interested in cowards. Spirit is interested in heroes. Heroes to bring about love. Heroes to bring about peace. Heroes to bring about compassion. And once our thinking has expanded, it's not going to go back to normal. And this is the same way with society. We have people who want somehow to go back. It won't work. Once our minds have been expanded, once our consciousness has been expanded, there's only more room for God's truth to flow in. Dr. King said he had seen the promised land, and he wasn't willing to return to a life of living in segregation. Alex, he left his teenage children, but he too had seen a promise of the call of Spirit, and he was not willing to turn back. Within each of us, there's this divine spark, a reflection of the universal Spirit. Now, we may not be called to heal a nation. We may not be called to have ourselves assassinated. But we can be called to show love to one another, to our family and friends, to heal the negativity within ourselves. And we can do it through communication with Spirit, to listening to that small, still voice that's urging us on, to know that we are to God what God is to us. And what is God to you this morning? Supportive, loving, compassionate, joyful. And we can be more of that in our lives. That's what we're called to do, to believe in the inherent goodness of all beings, the inevitable, complete salvation of all. Dr. Holmes says we all are going to get there. No, not one of us will be missing. Salvation isn't a thing to know when we die. It's a thing we declare here and now, in the face of any evil, in the face of any negativity, in the face of any anger, a salvation of knowing who we are and whose we are, children of the Most High. We've come to live in the goodness and glory of God. Now, we can do it on the balcony of Memphis. You can do it from a jail cell in Moscow. You can do it on the road to Jessup, Georgia, or you can do it in the dental chair. The only thing that's holding you back is to do it, to open yourself up to a greater idea. Dr. Holmes says our teaching is one of joy and happiness, a celebration of the divinity within each of us, that Spirit is with us, and we can look out on a world in turmoil and distress and proclaim love and compassion will reign supreme. That there's a day where the bonds of sisterhood and brotherhood will unite in common purpose, where the guns of war will be silenced at long last, where we will join arms in arms, Jew and Gentile, Christian and Muslim, the descendants of the enslaved and the slave owners. And together we will sing out, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, God with us. It's what we're here to do, and we're going to do it. Now's the time. This is the lifetime, and God has faith in you. It's the truth in your life this morning. It's the truth in mine, and so it is.